Okay, this is going to be a fun podcast. You're going to like this. I've got two really great gals here. If we can just quit giggling and figure out what we're going to talk about, you're going to really enjoy this. Joanne Young is going to talk about significant dreams she's had. And Dianne Lawson, who's, been my co-host before, still has stories. And this time she's going to talk about dreams, too. So we're going to talk about dreams, their power, and their purpose. Don't go away. Let's start with you, Joanne. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you, Esther?
Okay. Diane?
I'm great.
Lean forward. Nice big voice there.
I am really pleased to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yes, it is. I have to tell you, Dianne Lawson, as you probably know if you've been listening to our podcast, is the author of a book called Extraordinary Relationships Through Astrology. And she's a professional astrologist, which has nothing to do with the fact that she's going to share some strange dreams. Joanne does all kinds of interesting things, and personally, selfishly, one of the most interesting things she's doing is making my lawn look like a real person's house. And she's a great landscaper, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get started. Joanne, you want to kick it off?
Well, I guess I can. I remember a lot of my dreams, and I can feel if there's a difference, if it's really a dream that I need to note. And I've had several of those, and from very young I remember things that I dreamt about, and it felt like it was going to really happen, and when it happened it really surprised me, because I grew up in a very spiritual family with a grandmother that was part Indian, and I don't know if that had part of it, but it really influenced me, and she did that. And can I share a personal one that I've...
Yeah, that's why we're here.
Okay. I remember having this dream about this man, and I didn't know him, and I described him as a short 5'4" with really dark hair, and he was dressed in work clothes. And he went to an elevator, and the elevator door opened, but he wasn't paying attention to the elevator door, and he turned to talk to somebody, and he stepped into the elevator, but the elevator was not in service. And he fell through the shaft, and he died.
This is a dream.
In a dream.
Were you a little girl, did you say?
No, that's one when I was first married.
Oh.
And so when I woke up from that dream, I said to my husband, "Do you know this guy?" And I described him, what he looked like, where he worked, and what happened to him. And he said, "Nope, I don't know anybody like that." So I thought, that was really odd. And about a month later, his mom called and said, "Your cousin passed away." And I said, ask her, how did he die?" And she gave me the response that he had been working in a building in Washington, D.C., and he had not noticed that the sign said repair on it. And he walked through that shaft, and he did die. And I said, "Can she describe him to you?" And she did. She said he had dark hair, short dark hair, dressed, his work clothes, and he was about 5'4". So she described exactly how he died, where he died, and what he looked like. So,
but this is your cousin.
Not mine, my husband's.
And he had not met him?
No.
And he didn't even remember him?
No.
A distant cousin.
Distant cousin. So that's what my dreams are kind of like. I get the sense that if it's an important dream, I sense that dream. So.
And this has been happening to you since you were a little girl?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Have you had that kind of experience, Diane?
Well, I had one it wasn't as dramatic as hers, but I did have one precognitive dream like that. But my precognitive dream was just something that happened within minutes of the dream. But back in my very first social work job, I lived about a half a block from another social worker, and we used to share rides to work. And his name was Frank, and he hated his job, and he often called in sick. But I had never talked to his wife. I had never heard her voice. And one night, I had this dream, and in my dream, the phone rang. And I got up, I answered the phone, and it was Frank's wife. And she said, "Hi, Dianne, this is Paula. I'm Frank's wife. And I'm calling to tell you that Frank's home sick, and so you don't have to pick him up today." And I said, "Okay, thank you." And she said goodbye, and I said goodbye. And then just then the phone rang, and I knew without a doubt it was Paula on the other end, and by golly, it was. I answered the phone, and she said, "Hi, Dianne, this is Paula. This is Frank's wife. I'm just calling to let you know."
Word for word?
It was exactly word for word. And I knew at the time that I knew ahead what she was going to say. I knew that I had just experienced it in my dream, and it happened word for word just minutes after the dream. And I just don't even know how to explain that. I thought that was pretty strange.
What I find interesting about some of these dreams and people that tell me about them and my own experiences is that the dream is not always significant to my own life. For instance, that was your husband's cousin, not someone you were close to, and yet it came through you. Mm-hmm. And now you're talking about someone that you worked with and a wife calling that you really didn't even know. Mm-hmm. And it was word for word what you heard in the dream. Why did the dream come to you? I've always been puzzled by that.
I think a possible explanation is, I think that well, I'm not sure. Some of it may be that we are able to go forward in time. Sometimes when we dream about other people, I think they come to us because we are able to experience other people in the spirit form. So I think there are various reasons of why we have these kind of dreams.
Joanne, you're going to say something?
I think, too, that our spirit can be attuned. I mean, I felt attuned from a young age of the spirituality around me. Not a religion, but a spirituality of things open. Mm-hmm. And I know when my mom got sick, and this was a partial dream and not a dream, the radio kept coming on at night, and it was like wah 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 wah. And my husband was snoring that night, and I said, "Go sleep in the other room." So he went to sleep in the other room, and the radio came on again, and it went wah 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 wah. I couldn't understand what it was saying, and I said, "I'm scared." He's going, "Go to sleep. There's nothing wrong. The radio does that often."
Why were you scared?
Because it was like somebody was trying to talk to me, and I couldn't get the words, whatever it was, you know. And then I fell asleep, and then I woke up with a sense that there was somebody there that had taken a shower, because the aftershave Old Spice was so strong it woke me out of my deep dream. And we had been preparing for a vacation to go see my family, not knowing that my mom was really that sick. And I said, "Did you just get up and take a shower?" And my husband's going, "It's 5 o'clock in the morning," because that's how close the bedrooms were. And after that, when we got up, like about an hour later, because I didn't go back to sleep, I said to my husband, "We need to make sure that we have funeral clothes with us, because we're going to a funeral." It was that strong.
But your mother didn't use Old Spice.
No, my father did.
Did he die?
Yeah, he had passed away when I was 19.
Oh, so it was his spirit that came back.
That his spirit that told me to pack clothes. And we went for a 2-week vacation, and my mom passed away within those 2 weeks.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think, we talked last time, you and I talked about dreams, we talked about recurring dreams, and you said you didn't really have that many recurring dreams. Have you ever had recurring dreams?
No, I've never had those. My dream are very detailed, though. It's very detailed what I get.
Mine too.
Yours
too, Diane?
Yeah.
Yeah, my dreams are pretty detailed. I have lots of different kinds of dreams. Most of my dreams are trying to tell me about something or warn me of something. And they're often pretty crystal clear as to what in the heck is going on. I know other people's dreams kind of tend to be muddled, but mine seem to be pretty clear cut about what in the heck they're about, what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. They're directional. I find that they're directional.
I know I've told you this story before, but my daughter had a recurring dream from the time she was a little girl that she was my mother, and that we were crossing a prairie with a covered wagon with some other covered wagons, and we got to a certain place in the prairie, and in her dream, the Indians were approaching, and so we got under a wagon. And the vivid part that she kept telling me through the years was, Mom, I could actually feel the dust. I could hear the hooves, and I was pulling you close to me, and I could see, hear the whooping going on, and then the dream always ends right there. So this had gone on for years and years and years, and we lived, all over the country. Not necessarily. She was born in Kansas City, but we left here when she was 12. And we didn't do a lot out in the rural areas, even at that. We were in the heart of Kansas City. So the prairie wasn't a part of her upbringing, is what I should say. Anyway, when we finally moved back here to the middle, to the Mideast, to the Middle West, where am I?
Midwest.
Back here to the Midwest is what I'm trying to say. We used to like to jump in the car and go explore roads out in very rural areas. And one day we were driving around the Osage area, and we're going down a rutted trail. And as we turn a curve in this very open territory, there was a slight rise to our right. And Brooke said, "Oh, Mom, look. There's a plaque up on that little rise. Let's stop and go see what it says." And so we parked the car and we got out and we trudged up to the little knoll, and she got there ahead of me, of course, and she's reading it. And she stops reading and she looks out around her and she said, "Mom, this is it. This is what I've dreamed about all my life. This is exactly where we were with the wagon." So she goes on reading then, and she said, "Oh, this was a wagon stop." And that's what the plaque said, that it was a place where the wagon stopped it. Or it was a scene of something.
Yeah.
Anyway, what it did was confirm that was the very site of a recurring dream. And here we were 35 years later down the line in the very same place. So I thought that was interesting, and so did she. I have a theory. And Diane's heard this theory before, and she didn't say anything, which leads me to believe that she didn't necessarily find it to be true. But my theory is that in our dreams, we feel everything as acutely as we feel it in our waking state. And like my daughter said, she could feel the dust, she could smell the dust. I remember dreams. Diane, again, I told Diane about a dream I had where I'm walking down a country road, and there's a big barn up ahead, and that's my destination. Big red barn and some cars parked in front. There was an event going on in there. And as I'm walking down this dusty road, there's a little rise to my right, and there's a fence up there, a barbed wire fence. And there are some wildflowers growing along them. And as I'm walking along, I'm saying to myself, wouldn't this be odd if this were a dream? I mean, why am I going to that barn? And so I said, if I walk up this little rise and I reach across the barbed wire fence to those flowers, and I take their petals and I run them through my fingers, and if I can feel that, then I know this isn't a dream. And then there was something else I told myself, if I can feel the dust in my shoe, I know it isn't a dream. So I trudged up the little incline and I reached through the barbed wire fence and I got the little petals in my hand and I rubbed them and they came apart, of course, and I felt it and I said, it isn't a dream. Isn't that odd? And I felt the sun on my face, the sun on my back. You know, it was as real as today. So what I contend is that we live parallel lives. And that I'm not sure that what we're doing right now isn't the dream. Right now. I may wake up tomorrow and say, Diane, I had the strangest dream that you and Joanne and I were actually doing a podcast. I don't think what connects the two lives, because one is as real as the other. When we dream, we can make our heartbeat go faster when we're scared. You know, we can feel love, we feel tranquility, we feel everything. So we are as alive in the dream state as we are here. And then there is that silver cord that our soul connects us to this body. And as long as that silver cord is intact, we will stay in this bodily form. Once the silver cord is broken, we go to the dream state. We go there, and that's where we continue, because I do believe that life is eternal. Does that make sense?
Yes, I believe life is eternal. And we talked about dream, and I think sensations too in the dream. You know, I've had one where I'm walking with Jesus and the disciple, and I feel the dust, and I see the shoes, and I see the what they wore in those days, and I'm walking along this crowd of people, and you think, where did that come from? You know, it's not like, you know, it's not like you're watching a show before you go to bed, or, you know, because some dreams, you know, are triggered by something you've watched or something like that. But this was like, and I remember it was like some people were chained, but they were walking along and you could feel the dust on the road, and I was crying because I was going, I'm going that way. You know, I don't know where I was going, but it's like they were all following something, Jesus or what it was, but it was so, it just touched my heart so deeply, because you know, I've followed the Christ Spirit since I was a kid, you know, and always taught that I was exactly where I needed to be in the moment, not just in the place, not just the town. I just never felt that was from the town. So it just those dreams, they tend to stay with you because they're special in some way, and if you don't realize what it is, but whatever it is strong. It's very strong.
I wonder how we explain the dreams that are so surreal that they don't hook up with. Well, last time you and I talked about dreams, do you remember I told you that I had dreamed the night before that I was with Gregory Peck? Now, Gregory Peck was not even my favorite actor. I mean, he's fine, but, you know, he's not in my consciousness. So he and I are walking along, and we're having this wonderful conversation. And I am feeling as if this is somebody I've been with all my life. You know, we're so comfortable. And then we get where we're going, and this white-haired lady comes up to him, and they walk off. And I say to myself, why does that bother me? I realize that's his wife, you know. And then I wake up and I go, why does the whole thing bother me? This is stupid. What do I care about Gregory Peck or who he's married to? So where does that come from? I didn't watch a Gregory Peck movie before I went to bed. I'd not thought about Gregory Peck in 50 years probably. 30?
I just think
20?
there are a huge number of different kinds of dreams. Some are obviously wish fulfillment. Some are just kind of random. The brain is doing who knows what it's doing. And then there are some dreams that are so vivid and so real that you know they're real. And we were talking about eternal life. And one of the things that I think is the most compelling to me is I've been hearing lots of stories of people who have been telling me their dreams lately. I'm writing another book called, it's going to be about extraordinary experiences, and I've just been asking people about what kinds of unusual, inexplicable experiences they have, and a tremendous number of people have been telling me, who do not know one another, that they have had contact with people who have died, or had contact with people the moment the person has died. And all of these stories have 4 components. Everybody believes that the dream was extremely vivid, very real. You could see the dust, talk to the person, smell the person, whatever. They never forget the dream. They will remember this dream for the rest of their life. They are positive without a doubt that they saw the dead person. And these are often extremely meaningful. A lot of times they're healing. They're feeling like the main thing is they know the person is still there. The person's okay. And so I think those kinds of dreams are really compelling and different than the kind of dream that you had about Gregory Peck. I think the brain may have been going off in lots of different directions. Sometimes dreams are symbolic, that Gregory Peck may not have been about Gregory Peck. It may have been a symbol for something else, or it could have been a symbol for something in your life, who you are.
I never had a Gregory Peck in my life. That better when they gotten away from me. He'd still be here.
Well, maybe that was a wish fulfillment dream.
I have no idea. I had a dream, right after my son died. I was at my daughter's house in her guest room, and I would swear to you that I was not asleep. Have you ever had a dream where you're positive that you are not asleep? And I was lying there and I was crying, and I said, "Oh, Deanie, if I just knew where you were, if I just had some idea of where you are." Well, as I said that, I'm going to swear that this is the absolute truth. I felt the wind hit my face so hard, like when you stick your head out a window of a movie car, like the lab, retriever does or something. I felt the wind so strongly in my face I could hardly catch my breath. And I felt it raking back my hair. That's how strong the wind was. I had the sensation that we were flying. I knew that Dean was directly behind me, a little bit to my right and behind me. And we were going over landscape, and we were going over mountains, and we were going over an ocean, and all of a sudden we came to space. And it was beautifully dark, and I didn't know how fast we were going there because I had nothing to relate it to, nothing to compare it with. Suddenly, we were on a surface that looked like a moonscape. And I knew that he was right behind me, just a little over my right shoulder. And I looked out over this moonscape, and it was so beautiful, but it was so tranquil. But it was eerie in that it was so desolate. And it was like a silver blue net lay over everything. On a distant horizon, I saw what looked like the moon rising. And I said to Dean, "Oh, honey, it's so beautiful." But I was thinking, there's no other life. I hope he doesn't live here. And when I said it's so beautiful, but it's so lonely, do you live here? And he said, "No, Mom, I don't live here. This is where I come when I want to be alone and think." And I was so relieved to know he didn't live there by himself. And I said, "But what is that rising?" in the distance. And he said, that's Earth. And I said, oh, okay. So this is where he comes to be quiet and to think. And at that moment, I was fully awake. And I sat up on the side of the bed and I started crying. And I said, oh, Dean, thank you so much for showing me that, darling. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, on my right cheek, I felt a very firm, warm, slightly damp kiss. Mm-hmm. And I just put my hand there and said, thank you, Dino. Mm. Thank you, precious. Goodbye. Mm-hmm. And I know I was awake for that. So I don't know. Is there a thing? I think what you said it very well, Diane. You say there is no time. Everything that has happened, everything that's it's all one. Do you think so?
Well, I have no idea what time it is. I've always wondered what it was, and I will probably always wonder what it is. But
you have actually taken classes in this, and you.
Oh, I know. And the more you learn, the less you know. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how time works, and I don't know how the universe works, and I will always continue to question, and I'll probably never figure it out. But I do know that a lot of people have experienced things that our society just doesn't talk about much. But if you ask people and they feel safe telling you, a lot of people have had weird experiences where they've gone forward in time.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the nice thing about the three of us just talking together. We'll never tell it outside this room. This is our secret, girls.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
It's where you feel comfort and you know that you're with people that understand, because you've got to be able to share that. And this group is a place where you can.
You're talking about our Wednesday night group that comes.
Yes, because I can't explain any of that to my family, except for one sister.
Absolutely.
That she has the same kind of gift that I have. Mm. Because she has a very high spiritual sense of what's around her.
Do you think this is why the three of us are here right now? I've got to keep coughing. I'm sorry. That is not going to sound good on a podcast. But do you think this is why the three of us are drawn together, even though there are people in our immediate groups that we can't tell these kinds of things to? Is that your own are drawn to you? And we know we're safe together and we can tell these stories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I tell my stories to everybody. I don't
you don't care if they laugh at you behind your back.
I'm an astrologer. A lot of people think I'm kind of strange anyway. And I think if you're confident and firmly believe, I think people are just going to certainly not contradict you and will leave you alone most of the time.
That's true. It also has something to do with respect. I have friends in a certain church group that I know do not accept what I'm saying. So therefore I don't say it. Just out of respect for them, not because I fear their criticism. But why would I purposely offend them? It's offensive to them. And I don't know.
Well, we're all part of a journey.
Yeah.
And some people are drawn to certain parts of a journey that others will never realize. And that's the way I feel too, that this journey that I'm on, I had these feelings in childhood that there was something different in the family, because I grew up in a really big family. And I look back now at my sisters and my brother, and the thought process that I have is totally different from what they are.
Mm-hmm. I've always felt that we come into this life pretty pre-programmed. I know the fact that I don't eat meat. My mother, of course, and Dad thought that was just absurd. But Mother said to me, I'm here in my 50s or something, and Mother says, well, I would say it's all in your head, but when you were in the high chair and I tried to feed you meat out of Gerber's jars, you would gag and then throw up. So it isn't in your head, but I sure don't understand it. So we come predisposed. Is that, or are we getting into reincarnation?
I think some people are just naturally gifted or talented or have the ability to reach places that other people don't. And some of it seems to be just naturally innate because, like she was saying, she was born in a family where they didn't accept it, but she still had those abilities.
That's true. What do you think about all the classes they have in dream analysis? Is there a cookie cutter answer to things? How can we have a class in it?
Well, I've taken a lot of classes. I was at the School of Metaphysics, and they taught dream interpretation. And my stepfather was a psychiatrist who had been at the Menninger School of Psychiatry when Freud was king, and so he did a lot of dream interpretation. And their explanations of dreams were dramatically different from each other. And then if you talk to Native Americans or other, Aboriginal tribes, there are just lots of different ways to interpret dreams. But I think some of it is there are lots of ways you can interpret the same dream. There are lots of different layers of a dream.
That's probably true. Do you purposely try to dream, either one of you?
No.
Do you? I know I have to be very careful of what I read or what I listen to last, because it will slide right on over into a dream. Do you ever wake up in the night? I do. And I go, that was the sweetest dream. I want to go back to sleep and pick right up where I left off. And most often I can pick up right where I left off. What do you think about the fact that we're often aware that it is a dream? We say to ourselves, like I said in mine, if this is a dream, I won't be able to feel the flower, but yet I felt the flower, so I felt it wasn't a dream. Is there a real reason for a dream? Because everybody dreams, including animals.
I think a lot of it is just the brain's kind of reorganization. Most of the time, I think that's what most dreams are about.
What do you think they're about, Joanne?
I don't know. I dream in color.
Yeah.
I mean, some people don't even dream in color. I can't imagine that.
I can't either. I have an MGM musical.
I wake up every morning. I have a song in my head. So whatever I'm dreaming, I have that song, and it will stay with me most of the day.
Every night?
Every day.
Wow.
Every day. I wake up with a song.
Okay, you know what? We are out of time for you. Diane and I are going to keep talking for a bit, but I know you have to go pick up some grandchildren. So thank you very much for being with us today.
For sharing.
And we'll do this another time. Okay. You had a dream, and it involved you and your dog, and you actually saved your dog's life.
I had a little dog named Heidi, and she was a Cairn Terrier. She looked exactly like Toto in The Wizard of Oz. And one Saturday morning, I had this dream that was so vivid and so shocking that it woke me up. And I found myself sitting straight up in bed, wide awake. And what I dreamed was that the dog had somehow got out of the backyard and got in front of the house and got hit by a car. And the dream was so striking that I immediately went out in the backyard to see if Heidi was in the backyard. And she was, and I, checked the gate, and it was secure, and there was no way Heidi could get out. But I was so awake that I couldn't go back to sleep, so I made myself a pot of coffee, sat down in the living room on the couch, and drank the coffee and was trying to figure out what in the heck that dream meant. And as I mentioned earlier, I had gone to the School of Metaphysics, and my stepfather was a psychiatrist. And I didn't mention, but I have degrees in social work and psychology and worked as a social worker for years. So I had done a lot of dream interpretation, and I was sitting out on the couch trying to figure out what did that dream mean metaphysically or psychoanalytically or psychologically or whatever, and I couldn't make heads or tails out of it. And then I heard this tiny little whimper from in front of the house. And because of the dream, well, first of all, because I was awake, and then because I was sitting out on the couch trying to figure out what in the heck the dream meant, I went out in front of the yard and saw my dog, and it was in the middle of the street. It had apparently got hit by a car because it was trying to walk toward me, but the back two legs, even though they were facing frontwards and the front legs were facing frontwards, they weren't in a straight line. They were all crooked. I mean, the little dog's back looked broken. So I picked up the dog, ran in the house, called the vet, and the vet said, I'll meet you at the office. And he said if I had not immediately taken the dog in, the dog would have died. And so I think, if I hadn't have been awake and I hadn't been sitting out on the couch, if I had not have had that dream, I really think the dog would have died. And so I think that the dream saved the dog's life.
I think that's interesting. People always say, do we think that dogs are in heaven, or do dogs have a soul? Well, they must have some significance in the total scheme of things, because you wouldn't have a dream like that if you weren't meant to save that little baby's life. Is there anything else you want to tell us about? Because we're just about out of time.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me. I think this was a really interesting conversation. I think dreams are interesting. I think there's a lot more that we don't know than we do know, but people really have unusual precognitive and strange dreams, and I think we should be talking about it more to each other.
What about the people who say, "Oh, I never dream"?
Well, I think they probably don't remember. And I used to have really vivid, frequent dreams, but those were usually during periods in my life where I was wrestling with things and my brain was working all night trying to figure things out. I rarely remember my dreams now, and I think it's because I'm pretty content and pretty happy, and I don't need to be working all night in my dreams.
Okay. Dianne, good luck, and especially with your new book. And tell us a little bit about the new book, because I want to do a podcast about unusual things that happen to people. Can you think of a for instance from that? Just like an advanced promo here for your next book.
I can think of a whole bunch. I'll tell you one thing really briefly. I was out in Montana, out lost in a little VW bug and out in the middle of nowhere, and there was heavy snowfall everywhere.
So this isn't a dream.
This is real life. This is something that's going into my book, and we were intensely watching the road ahead because we were trying to stay between the fence posts so we wouldn't go off the road into a ditch. And we did get stuck. And I was catastrophizing and globalizing, we're going to die out here. And, should we all walk or should we leave the car? And we got out, we looked at the back tire that was stuck, and right by the back tire was a 6-foot long board, 6 inches wide, on top of the fresh snow. There hadn't been no tire tracks anywhere on the road. There was no evidence of anybody around. There was no way that board could have been on top of the snow. We put it under the wheel, and away we went. And that's an amazing coincidence. I don't know how to explain that. The book is going to be about extraordinary experiences, and I've just been asking lots of people if they've had any inexplicable, how in the heck do you explain that story, and I've been getting a huge number of them, and a lot of them are going into the book.
Well, we do have a podcast called Spiritual Encounters that Jack Diamond and I did. We just finished episode 1. We're going to do episode 2. And this is exactly what we talk about. There are so many things that happen that there's just no explanation. Another minute. Excuse me. Okay. So, thank you again. Edit that out. Woo. Okay, we really are fighting the clock here, so I'm going to have to say goodbye. Gosh, it's good to have you on again, Dianne. And we'll do something either just before your book comes out or right after it comes out, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
So keep on dreaming.
Okay, well, thank you.
God bless. Bye-bye.
I think you should leave that in. I do.
Well, what's life without good friends you can giggle and sneeze with? Thank you, Dianne. Thank you, Joanne. And you know what? Thank you, Fesleyan Studios, for that great, creepy music. Till next time, bye-bye.